When I bought my grandfather's old property, I thought I was just continuing a family legacy, but it turned into a war with the homeowners association. The house sat at the edge of Maple Creek Road, a neighborhood run by rules, polished lawns, and people who thought power came with a clipboard. My land, though, wasn't elite theirs. It had been in my family since the 1950s, long before the subdivision even existed. My grandfather had bought it under what was called an agricultural covenant, meaning the land always retained the right to farm, build, and maintain agricultural structures, no matter how the zoning changed. It told me, Onse, if anyone ever tells you what you can or can't do here, remind them whose soil this is. I didn't think I'd ever need that advice until the HOA came for me. In 2024, I decided to build a greenhouse, something my grandfather always dreamed of. It wasn't some commercial monstrosity, just a clean glass structure powered by small solar panels. It took 2 weekends to finish, and when the frame went up, it looked perfect. But then came the letter, notice of violation, unauthorized structure. The HOA claimed my greenhouse broke community standards and demanded I tear it down or face $250 daily fines. I called the HOA president. Richard Connors, a man whose ego was bigger than his tie collection. I tried explaining that my property predated the HOA itself, but he refused to listen. All homes within the perimeter follow the same rules, he said. I told him my grandfather's deed might say otherwise, but he just laughed and told me to remove it within 10 days. That night, I went searching for proof, digging through my grandfather's old shed until I found a rusted metal box filled with papers. Inside it, under layers of dust, was the original 1953 deed, and in bold legal text was a clause that made my heart race. This parcel retains agricultural and horticultural rights in perpetuity, unrestricted by subsequent zoning or neighborhood ordinances. I took pictures, made copies, highlighted the section, and sent it to the HOA with a short note. Please see attached. My property is exempt. I will not be removing the greenhouse. I thought that would be the end, but a week later I received a certified letter threatening legal action. Then one afternoon, Richard and 2 board members showed up uninvited, measuring my greenhouse, taking pictures like they were investigating a crime. When I asked what they were doing, Richard said, "We're documenting for legal purposes." I pulled out my phone, showed him the deed, and said, "You're wasting your time. T's landies and T yours to regulate it." Turn it red, scribbled something down, and left without a word. I figured that was the last of it until I came home one Friday to find a padlock on my greenhouse door. The HOA had physically trespassed on my property and sealed it off with a bright orange sign reading "Property closed." Violation. My anger turned to steel. The next morning I went to the county recorder's office, got certified copies of the deed and covenant, then went straight to the sheriff's office to file a trespassing complaint. The deputy raised an eyebrow when he read the document. "If this is still valid," he said, "they had no right setting foot on your land." Exactly what I wanted to hear. That afternoon I hired a property attorney named Sarah Whitfield, who specialized in historical land covenants. She studied the documents, smiled, and said, "They've overstepped in every possible way. The covenant is ironclad. You're exempt from HOA control, and their interference is a violation of your property rights within a week." Sarah sent the HOA a cease and desist letter and filed a legal claim for damages, including loss of use and emotional distress. The HOA scrambled, calling an emergency board meeting. Of course, I showed up with Sarah and a folder full of evidence. Richard's confidence evaporated the moment he saw her. Sarah spoke clearly and firmly, explaining that the HOA had trespassed and acted unlawfully. Under the agricultural covenant recorded in 1953, she said, "This land is exempt from your authority. Further interference will result in civil action and damages exceeding $50,000. You could have heard a pin drop. One board member whispered, "Wait, so his property isn't under HOA jurisdiction?" Sarah smiled. It never was. Turns out, when the HOA expanded its map years ago, they drew my lot inside their perimeter without legal right. They'd been enforcing rules over land that didn't even belong to them. The HOA folded fast. 2 weeks later, I got a formal apology letter, signed by the entire board, acknowledging that they had no authority over my land and would withdraw all enforcement actions. But I didn't stop there. With Sarah's help, I filed a public record correction, permanently establishing my property's exemption. Now it's on file for everyone to see. The HOA can never touch this land again. The sheriff personally came to remove their padlock. When he clipped it off and the door opened, I smelled the warm earth and tomatoes growing inside. He grinned and said, "Looks like your granddad knew what he was doing." "Yeah," I said. "He always did." A few months later, the greenhouse was thriving rows of vegetables, herbs, and even a small lemon tree. Neighbors who once complained started stopping by to ask for gardening tips. Some admitted they had no idea the HOA had gone too far. As for Richard, he resigned quietly after their insurance refused to cover legal costs for unauthorized enforcement. I built a small plaque and hung it by the greenhouse door. Hensley Greenhouse, established on Covenant soil, 1953. Every time I see it, I remember that some legacies are stronger than any rule book. The HOA thought they could control everything they saw, until they tried to erase a piece of history written into the land itself. And history, as they learned the hard way, doesn't bow to bylaws.